That's the rattlesnake, all right.
All right, it's a great white stoat coming at you from the great West Coast. Savage, doing a video on something that I find super interesting with regards to ufology, intergalactic visitors, maybe even interdimensional visitors, and whether or not humans can even achieve such travel abilities. I've had a very real interest in ufology since the early 90s, especially with regards to the Phoenix Lights, where people in Phoenix witnessed a mile-long chevron-shaped craft fly silently over Camelback Mountain. And then we had, of course, the X-Files TV show, Fire in the Sky movie. But let's bring it to even more of a close to home. It's one thing to, read about, supposed sightings and interactions with beings that would be construed as aliens, if you will, or interdimensional beings, and to ponder whether or not humans will be able to make such a technological leap. Excuse airplane noise. However, I'll never forget it. Around 10:30 p.m., October 24th, 2004, just off Vasco Road, few miles north of Lawrence Livermore Labs, I got to witness a huge black triangle fly over me, very low, just touching the tops of the eucalyptus trees that the farmers all planted for property markers. And I watched it do a maneuver as it went up and over a little hill, and then I was able to watch it as I traveled along this canyon road that would lead into Black Hawk Canyon. And there was a left turn, dogleg turn that rose in altitude, and I got an even better look at this craft, and it was a totally black triangle with a center mounted canopy. There were no jet engines, there were no propellers, and it was totally quiet. Now, in the UFO circles, this has been known as the TR-3B, and people have had video footage of this supposed craft where it's got three lights on each corner and a center blinking light. However, the craft I saw, it had one dim red light that was shielded in a way that I only saw it from a certain angle when it initially passed over my 2002 Honda SI that had the moonroof, and I never saw another type of light as it came over me. Which begs the question, do they have lights? Do they have a certain time period that they will turn on these lights to somehow fool the public? But what's interesting about the shrouded light, I have a pilot friend, and when you're coming in at an airport, they'll have lights that are shielded in such a way so that you know if you're too low or if you're too high or if you're right on the money. So, with that, here we are 22 years later, and no one has claimed ownership of this craft. And when we're talking about secret craft, the SR-71, the stealths, the B-21 Raider, we'll see spy shots of this, and eventually the government cops to it. But this craft, no one has copped to, which leads me down the road of the probable thing going on is that, yes, Virginia, we actually do have the technology. And this technology is so powerful that they are keeping it so close to the chest, right? When we talk about the Manhattan Project, man, you had commie spies all up in there, which is how Russia eventually got, their hands on nuke technology. But this technology is so highly compartmentalized, so top secret, and so closely guarded, they're not letting it out, which makes me believe that already what we have in place is a breakaway civilization. This is why astronomers, are so interested in identifying exoplanets, right? Like what? Alpha Centauri, right, is like what, 4 light years away. And really, when you start getting into like the discussion of, do humans have the ability, the computing technology, the engineering capabilities to build this craft to then go off into the stars? Right now, in American universities and institutions, there are entire segments of physics that are walled off from students studying, right? Because physics is so powerful. Eric Weinstein talks about this, that there are entire areas of physics that are blacked out from people getting access to, and that what they're feeding humans currently as like scientific study in the physics arena is string theory. But string theory hasn't given us diddly squat with regards to explaining what's going on. So I posit that the technology is already here, but the majority of humans are just fucking stupid and shouldn't have access to limitless power and limitless travel. I mean, look what the large amount of people did during the COVID lockdown, right? They put on the mask and they took the vaccine without even like a critical thought, right? We know that the government lies to us. The government will send people to war. But when it came to COVID, right, people were like, yeah, man, the government loves us and they want us to be healthy. And we already have the technology. There's already a breakaway civilization happening. Gary McKinnon hacked NASA back in the day and came up with a list of off-world officers, with regards to like the Nimitz encounters and the Tic Tac. That was most likely a exercise by our own government against our armed forces to see what their reaction would be. Because when you listen to the testimony of David Fravor, the guy who was like chasing the damn thing, before they sent him out to see this Tic Tac, hello G5, before they sent him out to look at this Tic Tac that was like bouncing above the waves on the ocean, they were like, bruh, are you armed? Do you have any weapons on you? And they were like, no, we don't have anything, just like dummy missiles that you'd have to like use a sledgehammer to knock off the wing. So we already have it. It's just whether or not we would allow the soft-bellied, TV-watching, mask-wearing, COVID-fearing people to have access to such a grand technology. I mean, look at what people do with a cell phone, right? We've got like a high-end computer that has more computing power than the computers did to get men to the moon, if we went. And the majority of people are watching mouth-breathing shorts, gooning out to porn, or using it to play fucking Candy Crush, right? Humanity is not ready for such a device to be given out. So what are your thoughts, Savage? I would like to hear it. Hope you guys are well. Hugs and kisses. Stay healthy out there. Hug your children.